Welcome to the American Dream Podcast, where we uncover remarkable stories of ambition and success. I'm your host, Katrina, and today we're excited to hear from a guest all the way from South Africa. Join us as we uncover different perspectives on achieving dreams and creating opportunities. Let's bridge continents. Welcome aboard. This is the American Dream Podcast. I'm in a studio with Wian from South Africa. Welcome to the show. I'm super excited about this. I even wore the colors of the giraffe because giraffes is the only thing I know about Africa. Besides that, I know bare minimum just from the shows that I watched about South Africa and Cape Town specifically. So I hope you will educate me about your homeland a little bit more today. So let's start with your background. Share a little bit about yourself. Where exactly in South Africa are you from, and what is your real name?
My name is Wian Fourie. We pronounce my last name actually Fourie because I am Afrikaans speaking. And so, but I've kind of acculturated it to America. I didn't do my name as much because it's spelled with a W, and we pronounce the W with a V sound.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it's Wian, Wian.
Wian.
Yeah.
Fourie.
Yes.
Yes. So where in South Africa were you born?
I was born in KwaZulu-Natal, which is close to the east coast of South Africa, near the Indian Ocean as well.
Interesting.
But I didn't spend much time there. My parents moved back to Johannesburg not too short afterwards.
Okay.
Or actually, they moved to Cape Town and then to Johannesburg. So each of my siblings were born in different cities of South Africa.
Okay.
But I spent the majority of my life in Johannesburg up until the age of 15, 16, and then we moved to the very southern tip, Cape Town, before we actually left the United States.
Okay. So who made that decision, and when did you find out that you are moving to the U.S.?
So my folks started the process in 1998. There was a culmination of factors that helped kind of urge them on. One of them was that my stepmom's sister and her husband immigrated to Canada, Vancouver. And so then that might have also started getting the wheels turning for them, like maybe we should follow suit. However, back then it was a little harder to get even into Canada. So then they started getting with a consultancy firm that places IT professionals in different countries, i.e. the United States. Okay. And so we didn't know where we were going to end up when they decided to give you the call back. And so that took roughly about 18 months to 2 years before they're like, hey, we have a company that we're going to place you with and get your stuff ready, and we're getting your visa straightened out and everything like that. But in the meantime, we obviously had to sell everything you had and start prepping, either living in apartments or a rental property, and getting rid of a lot of things so that you can fit everything in 2 suitcases to come over to the United States and consolidate. But yeah.
So how old were you when all of that was happening, packing suitcases and moving to a different continent?
When we left, I was 18.
Okay, and it was your full family that left South Africa?
No, that was part of also the challenge and struggle that my older sister couldn't be part of what would be the work visa that the company would offer you. You technically can't have children over the age of 18 to be your dependent on a work visa.
So you were right there.
So I was on the cusp, like,
yes.
I actually had the choice presented to me, like, you can either come with us and see what it's going to be like in the United States and this journey, or you can stay behind with your sister and fend for yourself, kind of, in some way.
You didn't want to stay with your sister?
No, the intriguingness of being 18 years old and never being outside of the United States or outside of South Africa was just way too much. Like, oh yeah, no, I totally want to go see what this is all about.
Did you have any expectations? Have you seen any Disney movies to prepare yourself to go to America?
Yeah, a lot of movies. I mean, but as we know, movies portray a different way of things in any way. Like, yeah, it completely some things were somewhat accurate, but it still blew my mind in terms of when I came here. But yeah, we were avid watchers of Friends and any other sitcoms and stuff growing up, and especially like teenage shows too, and like thinking, oh yeah, their school is so easy and laid back or whatever, it's so short or and no, it wasn't that at all, but it still blew my mind. I was still in awestruck.
How was your first experiences here in the US? How was it for you when you just landed here in America? What was the first thing that you saw and surprised you?
So we got here in the summertime in June. Mind you, the climate is opposite, obviously, because it's Southern Hemisphere in South Africa, even though we don't get quite the winters that they get. And so we came in the summertime, it was humid. And like that was the first thing, like, oh, it's quite a bit more humid than what I'm used to. But it was like, it was nice and bright and sunny. Everybody was super friendly, even someone in immigration and in the airports and stuff. Obviously, you land in JFK when you come, and we came to JFK, and then we had to go to the place the consultancy firm placed my parents, which was in Farmington Hills, Michigan. Me and my dad are huge car nuts, so getting to see the American vehicles and the highways, that was like, this is so crazy.
This is the American dream.
Big. Highways are huge, and it just feels like a rat's nest or whatever. Not that Cape Town and Johannesburg are very populous as well, and they have good infrastructures and highways. But just the magnitude of a lot of things just like kind of blew your mind.
And you said you landed in, where did you move to in America initially?
So after we were there for 2 weeks, the consultancy firm told my parents, your jobs are going to be in Columbus, Ohio. So, and that's where my younger sister is still, she lives there. My mom moved away from there 2 years ago, and she's now in Florida. But so that was technically my first home, was Columbus, Ohio.
Okay. And when did you move to Springfield, Missouri?
I moved 2 years later with an ex-girlfriend to Missouri. She had family here. And so it was kind of my getting out of the coop or the nest. Like I needed to go do my own thing, because obviously I was 20 and I just needed to spread my wings a little bit. And so I really loved the Ozarks. I'm like, not that Ohio is boring or anything, but it's just a lot cooler and prettier over here than it is.
And prettier?
Oh, the Ozarks I think it's a gem for the United States. Like, I mean,
well, yeah, we have Branson.
I mean, but so speaking of that was the funny thing. When I moved to Branson West when I moved here.
See, that's a pretty spot.
The people I talked to, I worked at a coffee takeout shop called Tim Hortons. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's kind of like Dunkin' Donuts, but it's more on the East Coast, and it's from Canada. And so the people there told me like, "Oh yeah, you're going to Branson. That's like the redneck Las Vegas or something like." And so I like, okay, I'm like, interesting. Like, I didn't know what it was, and then on the drive here, I was like, oh gosh, look at all the billboards for the shows and stuff coming. Because they didn't have that in Columbus, Ohio, or anything like that. So that was kind of fun to see.
Any cultural differences that stood out to you the most when you moved here?
So South Africa is a British colony, or was a British colony. We have the metric system. So I had to get used to those units of measures and stuff. We also drive on the opposite side of the road, and I learned to drive on the steering wheel's on the opposite side too. And so that's some contrasting things. One thing in particular too is we have what they call the VAT system in our tax. So everything that you buy, the price you pay is the price you pay is the price you see, or you see a price, but that's not technically the finished final price.
If it's a dollar store, it's going to be $1.75
or something like that.
Yeah.
And getting used to that, like that was kind of like, yeah, and every area has a different tax percentage rate.
What about American food?
That was kind of like interesting to experience as well. We have our takeout joints as well. We don't have nearly all the American ones that they have here. We've got Burger King, McDonald's. The one we had the longest was KFC and Pizza Hut. However, our KFC is a little different, and they obviously cater it to the different countries that they that they are in. It was kind of cool to experience, to see what the burgers are like, or what some of the takeouts are, and just to experience it. My favorite, obviously, I was big on barbecue. I love barbecue sauce, and so getting to try anything flame broiled or flame grilled or smoked, that I enjoyed thoroughly.
So let's talk a little bit about community too. How easy was it for you, or how hard was it for you to find friends here? Because you were 18 years old, you're still developing mentally and physically. I moved here when I was 16. So I was, this on the cusp of that age of, maturing. So to me, it was hard to find friends in the first place. I did not really want to move here. How was it for you?
I can imagine high school. I didn't have to go to high school yet, or I was already past the age of high school. I imagine that would have been pretty challenging. I did go to community college, and so I do speak English, but I do have different terms that I use as well, because we are used to the British English. And so getting used to that type of slang and terms,
Howdy.
I obviously stood out quite a bit. But in general, I wasn't a very outgoing person in any way, so having to kind of get out of my shell to meet different folks, that was a big stepping stone as well. I was fortunate that my folks, they wanted to find a local church as well, and so getting to meet people with the church, and a lot of people being very friendly, and they have children that want to get to know your story as well, and getting to explain that to different people. That was actually the fortunate thing. Like, you had a story to tell to people, and a lot of people were curious because their perception was completely either swayed of what they think of Africa, or even South Africa as well.
So have you encountered any unexpected situations when you moved here?
I think I blended kind of pretty well in terms of, I am Caucasian, and so people they just kind of think you're an American too if you're Caucasian. I'm like, people from other countries probably stand out a little more, and probably sometimes are harder to approach, or if people feel like they're harder to approach. I don't know if you can say the same thing.
Oh, absolutely. Every time I open my mouth to say something and people hear my Russian accent, the first question they ask me, do you drink vodka all the time? Every time, yes. Oh, you probably never get cold during this weather. So that was unexpected for me.
I did not. The same thing about the fact that I suffered in the summertime. Like, well, what do you mean you're from Africa? It's hot over there. I'm like, it's not the same kind of heat.
So what is it like to live in Africa during summer? You said it's the opposite.
Yeah, so you'd have warm weather during your Christmas time. So I never experienced a snowy Christmas. So that was really cool as a first experience coming here, especially the first year I did community college too. It was downtown Columbus, and I got to walk around downtown Columbus, and then it started snowing. I'm like, I'm feeling snow for the first time falling on me, and being very naive and getting to feeling like I'm soaking this in, even though it's snowing on me. And
let's talk a little bit about the concept of the American dream. Okay. This is something that everyone is moving here for, every immigrant. In your case, your parents were seeking the American dream. It seems like, the job opportunity, work visa, all of that.
Yeah.
What about you? You being 18 years old guy, young adult, you are coming here just because you think it's fun, interesting experience. So you probably didn't really care about American dream. What about now? Do you have an American dream?
When I came here, I realized that it would be a lot more attainable to have a good life and a career versus where I came from. And that was also kind of the catalyst that pushed my parents to move over. When I was in South Africa, I went to a technical college, which is kind of like I don't know if you've heard of a VOTEC school here in America. And it's more geared to trades or something.
Oh, okay.
And so I did some electrical trade theory, and I did really well in that. And there was a point where an instructor told me, Wian, you realize that it doesn't matter how much you excel in your classes or in your career, you'll be in the lowest of the hiring list category of a HR manager or a recruiter. Because at the time, South Africa was going through a change, and in terms of also the workforce and everything, kind of like an affirmative action. And so a white Afrikaans-speaking male would have been on the lowest of the hiring managers' categories of picking. And so I was a little bit naive. It's like, how could that be? I'm like, wouldn't it matter that this person had straight A's? And so that also, like, okay, well, if that is truly the case, then maybe I should explore the opportunity to see what it would be like to get a career or in a different country or the United States. Later on, I realized that you could make a decent living in America without actually even having to go as far as having to have a degree, and you could still live comfortably as a blue-collar person. That was definitely a dying thing in South Africa. Unemployment was on the rise, just all kinds of crazy things in terms of like, you'd have to be established with a lot of companies or have some serious connections, social connections, or even, work connections to in order to get your foot in the door with a good company or anything like that.
So what about your work and your career here in America now? Share a little bit about that.
So I work for a company called John Deere Remanufacturing, and John Deere.
Oh, wait, no.
Well, that's just a deer. This is not African deer.
That's a different deer.
People get that
mixed up
all the time. It's actually kind of fun. But I actually did not know that much about deer before moving to the United States. It wasn't a big agricultural or construction company in South Africa. They have started making more of a presence there, but most people either had the other brands that were out there. But so, yeah, I'm fortunate that I get to work for a Fortune 500 company. I've been with them for almost 15 years. Next year it'd be almost 15 years. And so that's just, I couldn't have wished something better. I've always been interested in technical stuff and cars and all kinds of stuff like that in terms of engines. And it was just kind of, when I got to tour it for the first time in an interview, I was just awestruck because I just loved the whole premise of taking something that was junk and thrown away or whatever kind of, and repurposing it and making it new. That was always my kind of thing, like tinkering with stuff at home, like tearing stuff apart and seeing if I can make it brand new. And
so would you say you're working your dream job?
I would say so. I kind of love the aspect of it. And so
it is part of your American dream.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Do you believe in American dream? I
think it's still attainable, and things have become a little more sketchy for a lot of people, especially after COVID and the climate of things that are changing in the world with all kinds of technology and AI and whatnot. And so I still think it's an attainable thing to make a good career in the United States. It's still, they're going through a weird thing in terms of their immigration and everything. It's obviously become a lot harder to come to the United States than it was 24 years ago when we came, and even before that. But American dream still exists. I would I would say so. I think you can still attain it without having a high profile degree. If you are willing to put forth hard work and put your name out there, you're still going to go places. Where I believe maybe, I don't know what it's like in Russia, but in South Africa, if you're not either from a specific college or social class, maybe in some way, it will be a lot harder to get at least somewhat of a South African dream in that matter.
Absolutely. What aspects of your South African culture or values do you bring into this American dream that you're living? And how does that South African root helps you fight for your success here in America?
I would imagine that a lot of the South African culture, people they're also like, they need to work hard and come up with innovative things to still survive and get through life, because they've seen some pretty bad times, and a lot of people have had to struggle to survive, to make a living. As far as what I brought to the United States in my own culture, I think I was brought up with very traditional values in terms of, like, we grew up Christian, and so that was, I don't know if I brought anything in terms of my Christian values here, because there was already established Christian churches and stuff, but it was nice to at least see how I can melt in terms of what's church or Christianity like in America versus in South Africa.
What about stereotypes and misconceptions that somebody said to you and it was just crazy and it was not true at all?
So the most common thing was, "How are you from Africa? You're not black," or "Was your parents missionaries?" and stuff. And I'm like, no, my forefathers have lived there since the 1600s. If I had to dig deep, and like, my forefathers did immigrate from Europe, and they were they called the French Dutch Huguenots. And so some of them actually came to the United States as well back in those times, and some of them went down to South Africa. And part of it was also the hierarchy, or there was a company called the Dutch East India Company that was it's the time of exploration. And so South Africa was kind of like a halfway point to the east of, like, China or India or that. And so that's how it became so popular in terms of its heritage, in terms of, like, there's a lot of Dutch colonial structures and stuff, and the history of that.
That makes sense. So majority of the population in South Africa is white?
No, it's more somewhere between 9 and 10%. Like the United States, South Africa is very much a melting pot. Like, so we have people from India that have been there for generations. We have people from Malaysia. Unfortunately, a lot of it would have been something to do with the bad times of when there was slavery and stuff like that. But yeah, we have a lot of German influence, Dutch influence. There's people from Portuguese settlements, Greek settlements, and so
I never knew that.
So when I came to the United States and people asked, like, how do you feel about experiencing the melting pot that is the United States? And I was like, we technically have way more cultures in South Africa, and how we've blended as just the soup of different nationalities, and how we've had to get along and adopt different things within our culture, whether it be food or pastimes or anything like that. And so, to get back to, I'm derailing in terms of, like, what questions I got asked. Stereotypes. They also asked, like, did you live in a hut or see lions running around in your backyard or something like? Mind you, this was early 2000s. I think it probably has progressed away from that. I mean, depending on what area probably you are in the United States. But so that is very far from the case. We have very established suburb, big cities. Mm-hmm. Funny enough, I had never seen wildlife running around.
What about giraffes?
Running around in streets or in our backyards as much as I have living in Columbus, Ohio, or Missouri. Like, I had never seen a deer running across the street, or
a raccoon.
Or yeah, those were actually the fascinating thing when I came here and saw my first raccoon. But yeah, we had lots of birds, like wild birds.
What advice would you give to your fellow immigrants from South Africa in terms of pursuing their American dream? Should they move to America and give it a shot?
I think if your journey is to try and see if you can attain more financial wealth, and you're afraid that you're just not going to be able to make it in South Africa with what's going on socially, economically over there, the sooner you can start the process of either talking to folks that have made the step recently, that would be the best case. Getting with different social connections that know either whether some companies are trying to explore having a workforce from different countries, and when they open the door to accepting applicants from outside countries, that'd be probably the best. LinkedIn is probably one of the best tools to keep up on some things like that. I'm not that versed in it. I've just recently started getting a profile, but yeah, I didn't even know it was as socially kind of like the Facebook of workforce. The other way that if you couldn't either get a established degree of some sort, like being an engineer or a doctor, I would say look for ways that if you wanted to come study first, that probably would be a better alternative. Because then once you probably could get a student visa a little easier, and I'm making this sound very generalized, than trying to get a work visa. And once you're here, and whichever career path you're picking, you can then get immersed, or maybe even see if there would be companies that would take somebody for an internship for a little bit that doesn't have a work status, and then getting your name out there. And if you prove to them probably you're the best of the best, then they might forego and try to get a work visa for you to hire you on.
And looking ahead on your journey here in America, what are your future plans and aspirations in continuing to achieve your American dream?
I still have a lot of undecided things that I'm 42 years old, so I feel like I'm probably too old to still study, but I probably should get some courses behind me in terms of if I want to excel further in the corporate ladder or anything like that. I didn't get a bachelor's degree, but that's why I felt like I'm very fortunate that I was able to get in with a company that I have been. I worked my way up as well from lower end entry level wage jobs. I feel like if I do want to excel further than that, if that's my path, then I probably would have to go get some more courses behind me. Other than that, I would love to start getting to a point where I'm more immersed in giving back to the community, or getting into some kind of like stuff that can help pay back or help anybody in my local community or something like that.
Welcome back. You're listening to the American Dream podcast. I'm here in the studio with Wian from South Africa, and we're about to take a beautiful trip to your homeland. But before we start, when was the last time you were home?
So I took my wife, kid, and my wife's aunt in 2017. So it's been at least 7 years.
7 years.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's been a while. It's a pretty expensive plane ticket, unfortunately.
How long is the flight?
So this is the part that probably scares a lot of people. It's you can get a direct flight from Atlanta to Cape Town and it'll be about a 16-hour flight.
Oh,
16, 17 hours.
16 hours?
Yeah.
That's awful. My flight from Russia, I had 3 flights. So in total, it was like a 2-day travel experience with the layovers. But my longest flight was a little bit over 10 hours.
Okay.
That's all I could do.
In the air.
Yeah. But that was awful. I can't imagine going 6 more hours in that plane.
So, it sounds very scary to people, but it's actually the better alternative because that last time we went, we had so many layovers because we didn't have a direct flight. And so we left from Kansas City to Dulles, Washington. From Dulles, Washington, it flew to Accra, Ghana, and stopped somewhere on the west point of Africa. Mm-hmm. And then from Accra, Ghana, it flew to Johannesburg. And then from Johannesburg, it flew from Cape Town.
So too many flights.
So exhausted.
Oh, I can't imagine.
The layovers and stoppages actually makes, at least on my opinion, air traveler way more tired. If you can just get it in one shot, even though that sounds like a very, very long time.
But at least you don't have to worry about your luggages and, trying to go through the metal detectors 10 times in the airport and sit there and wait and buy expensive waters, overpriced snacks.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's talk a little bit about South Africa and its unique and compelling travel destinations. What is it about South Africa that you think will be so attractive to Americans to travel to?
It has a lot to offer in terms of landscape, geography. It's just beautiful. Mm-hmm. Everything from where it looks like in Cape Town, it half looks like somewhere you'd either see in Hawaii maybe or something because it has a giant mountain called Table Mountain. But so it just depends what you want to see. If you want to see wildlife, it's your oyster. Like you're gonna see wildlife on safaris, not just roaming crazy in the streets or anything like that. They have some really amazing nature reserves and safaris because they learned quick that was going to be their appeal to anybody that wants to tour, and they do a good job of trying to show people special things that animals do out in the wild as best they can.
So where in South Africa a tourist should go?
I would recommend, and I could be biased, but Cape Town has the most of what is probably encompassing in South Africa to offer. But there are other things that are further north in Johannesburg that you can see as well. The appeal to Cape Town is the fact that you have 2 oceans meeting, and so if you go the right time, the water is just amazing. The Atlantic Ocean is cold sometimes in the summertime, but there are some awesome surf destinations with amazing waves. There's a lot of surfers in South Africa.
Interesting.
Even though I never got to master the trait either, but I tried.
So Cape Town.
Yeah, Cape Town would be definitely on my list. If I've never been there and I had to explain to a tourist, you need to go see Cape Town. It's got rich history from all the different cultures that have settled there throughout the decades or centuries. And so it's got old architecture for Dutch colonial. It's got, when the British took over, there's different British architecture and chapels and stuff. If you're into adventure, hiking, or mountain climbing or mountain biking, it's got a lot of that as well. Like, so yeah, you can go rappelling and abseiling in Cape Town if you're into like doing that. A lot of people do parasailing as well. If you travel maybe 3 or 4 hours away from Cape Town, it has one of the world's first largest bungee jumping places as well.
I've heard about that, and I've seen some videos.
So they have that as well. If you're into that major adrenaline, extreme adventure, it obviously has a lot of different sports you can go watch too that you might not have been accustomed to as well. Like I mentioned, rugby is one of our national pastimes. They also have soccer, so you can go watch different soccer games. Motorsports as well. I was big into motorsports or cars as well before I moved to the United States. So you can either go experience some of that.
In a travel show, I've seen this lady buying a goat's head.
Yes, that's so. A lot of the I've never tried that. A lot of indigenous people, the more rural areas, or even where the shanty towns are. So
it is true.
They have that, and goat and lamb is a staple food in South Africa versus beef in any way. A lot more people eat lamb chops, lamb ground up in their dishes versus beef because it's a lot more affordable and it's a lot more economical to raise sheep and lamb in any way.
Have you ever had a goat head in South Africa?
No, I have not.
It
probably would have kind of freaked me out back then too. I might try it if I knew who prepared it, maybe in some way.
It's disturbing. I mean, when I saw that, just like a bunch of goat heads and they divide it in half and you see all the insides, and this lady just like picked it up and she had a bunch of little kids from Cape Town just like, not attacking her, but just like, being hungry, and they're like, oh my gosh. And she was like, you guys want this? And they were like, yes. And they were just like eating it off of her, hand. And it was just interesting and not something I would probably get.
I generally have never technically ate anything that was a head of something, I think. So yeah, no, I've never done it. I probably, since I was from there, I probably would have to eventually see if I could try it, but because I do like lamb. Growing up, my mom and her aunts made fish, like whole fish, and they would eat the eyeballs and stuff. And I was just like, oh, there's no way I'm doing that.
Oh, eyeballs. Gross.
I'm like, there's just no way.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of the indigenous people have very eclectic, and most people would think it's very strange delicacies. Closer to Johannesburg, there are tribes that would fry, they call it mopani worms, and it's a very big, thick caterpillar. And one year we actually had a bunch of these. I don't know if it was like some weird season coming to our backyard. And I'm like, what in the world? And so we had a lady that helped us out and worked in our house, and she's like, oh yeah, we fry these. And I was like, I don't know if
South African hot dogs. So let's talk about, since we're talking about food, what is the national or traditional food in South Africa for tourists to try?
So for like local barbecuing and stuff, if I had to pick one category, we love, it's called boerewors, and it's like a stuffed sausage that's got pork and beef or pork and lamb ground in it with onions and other different spices and stuff. I'm sure you used to Polish sausage, or there's Russian sausage.
Yes.
We love we had Russian sausage in South Africa too, and
really
we love that as well. But we have our own version that
not a lot of Americans like that though. I've brought my sausage here to work to my boyfriend, and everyone hated it.
Oh no. But so yeah, that I would definitely recommend.
Me too.
I gave it to some friends here too, and I actually the common friend that we know, Billy Dove, they explained it as like, it's kind of like Christmas in a casing or something, because there's different, there's rosemary or something, spices in there, and that reminds some people of, I guess, Christmas dishes here or something. It's kind of interesting.
Okay, so it's barbecue that you are recommending for tourists to try.
Yeah.
Any desserts? There's
2 in particular. One, my mom actually showed my wife how to make, and it's called malva pudding, and it's kind of like a brand. You can make it with brandy as well. Brandy is the popular liquor of choice for guys, that instead of Coke and Jack Daniels, it'd be brandy and Coke.
Oh, okay.
And which it is it's distilled locally as well. Mm-hmm. I definitely would recommend. That's another thing I forgot to mention about Cape Town. I'm sorry. Vineyards. There's a lot of wine country, and just like you'd go to, I imagine here to Napa Valley, they have Stellenbosch and Frans Hoek, which is like through the summertime you want to go try the different vineyards and distilleries and try.
I never knew that tasting. About South Africa.
Well, I also learned after the fact, normally any coastal towns or regions should have a good enough climate to grow grapes for wine. That's why Argentina is popular. That's why New Zealand is popular. Italy is also near. They have the Mediterranean. Definitely try South African wines if you get the opportunity to. They actually sell some here at Brown Derby and Macadoodles.
What about some interesting traditions in South Africa that a tourist can witness, and it would be just a one-in-a-lifetime experience?
So in Cape Town in general, there's a place called the V&A waterfront. It's called the Victoria and Alfred waterfront. And they have all kinds of different culture and ethnicities sometimes display their flea market booths or flea market things, and sometimes they'll have performances of local tribe performances. And so getting to experience that too is kind of an interesting thing, kind of like if you went to Hawaii and watched the locals do their performing arts and dances. That's a cool thing to notice.
All right. So what is the time of year tourists should go to South Africa? You mentioned that you guys have opposite winter and summer with the climate here. So what is the month that if someone were to go to South Africa, they should look into going?
So ideally would be early March. February, you would still experience pretty high heat temperature. I don't think it'd be completely unbearable. But yeah, somewhere between February, March, and not too late after early April. That's like they're starting to get into their autumn season. Well, most people know it as fall, I guess.
Yes, autumn. No, I know exactly what you're talking about. I was learning British English in school in Russia.
It would be it'd be starting to go into their autumn season, but they'll still have warm days. It also would be more ideal in terms of traveling expense, because plane tickets are cheaper around the February-March range.
What is the currency in South Africa?
The currency is the rand. R-A-N-D.
What is the comparison? Do you know, to dollars? How expensive is it going to be for someone to travel from America to South Africa?
The biggest expense will be your plane ticket. You can, if you go around the February-March range, you can probably bet on maybe paying $1,100 to $1,200.
Okay.
But we lucked out when we took my wife's aunt in 2017. Mind you, that was 7 years ago. There are different travel agencies that will run Black Friday specials that you have to look for on their social media pages. And we got her a plane ticket for $700. So every now and then, if you either keep tabs or follow some type of travel agency, they will have some kind of, like, if they didn't get to sell enough that they wanted to sell, they'll mark them down way down the average price rate. And so if you can get a ticket for $700, I'm like, you should probably go do it. That is your opportunity. The sucky part is it is economy class, and flying 16 hours economy class.
It's rough. I was flying for 10 hours by the bathroom. Can you imagine that?
That is definitely endurance type thing. And if you've never done it before, that is going to be challenging if you don't know how to sleep on a plane, which I can't sleep on a plane.
Me neither.
It sucks.
I can never. Just the sound of it and like the ears clogging and the turbulence, everything, all of that. I hate everything about planes. One day
or someday I might get to experience the business class, or maybe even the first class if I'm lucky enough, and I bet you that probably would be a game changer. And so
let's talk a little bit about the language too. I know nothing about South Africa, or at least I knew nothing until I met you and we had this conversation. What is the language in South Africa? You said that there are a lot of people from different countries and cultures, and it was a British colony. So you guys speak English.
Yes.
However, is there any other languages that a tourist should keep in mind unless they will go to a big city? Like, let's say they're going to a lesser known destination, a small village in the middle of South Africa. Do they all speak English?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yes. So there is no... Is there any other languages?
English is the accepted business language, and everybody will understand English for that matter.
Okay.
South Africa has 11 official languages.
11?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So most of the schools are bilingual. I grew up in a bilingual school as well, and even though English was not my first language, it was my second language. Afrikaans was my first language.
Okay.
And Afrikaans originated in South Africa in the early 1600s or so.
Wow.
When the Dutch settled there, it's a hybrid language from Dutch origin and the local indigenous languages as well. So I can understand some words that people from the Netherlands say, but sometimes it's a little, if they either talk too fast, or some words I might have a struggle or be vague.
So can you teach me a little bit of Afrikaans language? Usually on this podcast, I always ask my foreign guests to teach me a little bit of their language. In this case, you speak English, and this is your language you're speaking. I speak it too, believe it or not. So teach me a little bit of Afrikaans. I can't even imagine what it sounds like.
So we have a lot of the G sound. People think we're hawking a loogie, kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
so
other people that don't know how to say it, they're gonna put overemphasis on it. But so if you want to be very formal, and I met you for the first time, I'd say "aangename kennis," which means I'm proud to make your acquaintance.
Aangename kennis?
Aangename
kennis.
Kennis. Which kennis is knowledge in Afrikaans.
Aangename kennis. How to say?
If you say, this might be a little easier. If you say, when you have someone come into your house, like, welkom, Ekaterina, welkom. But it's almost spelled like welcome, but it's, the W is pronounced as a V. Welkom.
Welkom.
Yeah.
Welkom. Okay. How to say South Africa in Afrikaans?
Oh, South Africa.
Oh, South Africa.
South Africa.
South Africa. Okay.
But yeah, if you say either good day or good afternoon or good night, the first word will always be goeie. And that's where people are like,
what is it again?
You're hawking a loogie.
How to say it?
Goeie. That means good. So goeiemorgen is good morning.
That word is actually a bad word in Russian language, believe it or not. Very bad.
So funny enough, you mentioned bad language. That is one of the first things a lot of my American peers
of course
always are like, why do you say this bad word in Afrikaans or something like that?
What is the bad word in Afrikaans language?
Oh no.
You're not gonna say it?
There's several, so I don't know.
What is like the worst one?
Oh,
kind of like the F word in English.
Oh gosh.
You're the first guest I'm making you do this.
Oh god, gee, thanks. If you had to say the F word, it's actually spelled with a V, and it's you say fuck. which that's my if my family sees it, they're not going to be very proud of me. But yeah.
So fork?
Yeah. If you say off, it just off. So.
Okay, so it's still similar. So speaking of bad words, let's talk a little bit about safety in South Africa. How safe is it to travel, let's say for a young woman to be there by herself?
It's challenging. I probably would not advise it for tourists if you're by yourself to venture.
Should you know somebody first, local, or should you have a tourist guide, or should you go, let's say I'm going there with my boyfriend, would that be okay? Or should I still have someone else?
I would say if you were with your boyfriend, you probably would still have a better chance. The only thing is you would have to try not to stick out acting, I guess, kind of like you are being a tourist in that manner in some way. You definitely, they have, it's pickpocketing and mugging is a thing. It's bad. Mm-hmm. Crime is very high. So if you were venturing on sidewalks in big cities or anything like that, you want to keep your personal possessions close to you. And you somewhat have it in your favor, the fact that belly pouches became a popular thing now again. So then it's in your front.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, carrying a big purse on your side, you're going to be sticking out like a thumb in terms of like they would target you, or
they'll take advantage.
At least if it's a big one, they're like, oh, what is she carrying around that's that big or whatever. Or probably I would imagine if you just like willy-nilly like carrying your phone out in the open and not paying attention.
So don't be naive.
Don't be naive, yeah. But yeah, I would, if you can, I would probably recommend trying to either do with somebody local, if you could pair up like that, or try to see if there's a way you can book it through a booking agency for a travel agency. They actually do have some pretty decent deals when it comes to stuff like that.
So what is something that everyone should bring with themselves from South Africa after their trip is over, whether it's an experience or an item?
I would definitely recommend finding something that was locally made by somebody that crafted it. And I have some examples that I brought too.
Yes, which stay tuned. The next half is going to be your items.
That my wife and her aunt and them brought back. Obviously, I'm not a decorator or anything like that, so I don't care about having to bring that. But I probably would, if I go back, try to get something that somebody locally made with their hands. And that's plentiful. Like there are people literally on the side of the roads that are carving stuff out of wood, or they made it out of different rocks and stuff, and it would just blew your mind in terms of like little animal figurines of the wild animals. Way back when I was a child, they'd carve ashtrays for people too out of different rocks and stuff like that. Not that would be a thing, but definitely something that somebody made locally to bring back with you.
Welcome back. You're listening to the American Dream podcast. And actually, I recommend you to check out our YouTube right now, because you will want to see what's going on here in the studio right now. Wian from South Africa, you are officially the first guest on my podcast that has put so much effort that you just brought the entire store and the entire country of South Africa here to the studio. So many items. I see flag, I see money, I see alcohol, some tea, some sauces, even beef jerky. So let's go through all of them and explain to me why this is the option that you chose to bring that represents your homeland the best.
Well, I wanted to show at least what the flag looks like and some of the currency.
It's very colorful. It's very pretty. The currency has a rhino on it. Beautiful flag. Beautiful, vibrant colors.
So, yeah, the flag changed when the new government took over in 1994, if I remember correctly, when Nelson Mandela became the president. And each color has a different representation of what it means for the country as well.
So we have a flag over here. We also have money, and you even brought some documents with you from South Africa.
So the one thing I do actually miss is the fact that the unit of bills for the South African rand, each paper, when I say paper, is a different color and a different size. So the smallest bill is this 10. The current exchange rate is about, you get 18 rands for $1. So this wouldn't even be 50 cents or so, unfortunately.
But it's such a pretty, like,
and
money.
Each one has a different wild South African animal on it.
And you also brought some documents with you, like a passport?
I put in to retain my South African citizenship, even though I've told them that I've become a United States national. So, but in that manner, I get to keep my South African passport. And when I enter South Africa, I get to use this, and I actually get to skip the line for everybody else that has to go through immigration.
So let's look at your items now that you brought. I see that you have a football over there, and you also have a wooden bowl. It looks like a soup bowl.
Yeah, just like you were asking, what would you bring back, or what would you recommend bringing back if you were going to visit South Africa? And so a lot of locals that don't have a lot in terms of careers or whatever, they try to make things to sell to support their family
with their hands.
And they'll be set up on the sides of the roads, or they go to parking lots or wherever on sidewalks, and it's stuff that locals have carved as crafts and stuff. And so when I went in 2017, my wife got to bring back a bowl that was hand carved by a local there.
Okay, and I see spoons, giraffe spoons, that I saw the first thing when you started pulling things out of your bags. I said, oh my gosh, giraffes. I absolutely love giraffes, especially like
so this one does say
like this.
Kenya on it, but it was bought from a local vendor on the street in South Africa.
How often do you use this? The bowl and the spoons?
It's mainly more probably a display decoration, but I think my wife has used it once or twice. But yeah, it's a memory. Yeah, for sure.
It's so cute. Oh my gosh, I love this design so much. So this is like a fork spoon, and this is a spoon. Interesting. And so I also see a football over there.
In South Africa, one of the national sports and pastimes is rugby. Yes. And so technically, American football did get a lot of its roots from rugby. It was a sport way before American gridiron was a sport.
Didn't know that.
Yeah. And so the ball is bigger than a football, obviously, American size football, but they are all the same size. And this is a common brand that the professional leagues and the national teams use is Gilbert.
It's on your shirt too. The same deer.
So the national South African rugby team is called the Springboks. And that is a Springbok. And why it's called a Springbok, I think probably is also because of the Dutch influence in Afrikaans. Spring means jump in Afrikaans, and bok means deer. So it's basically jumping deer. And they do jump over 6 feet high in terms of when they get going and they jump. It's quite the sight to see if you ever could see a whole herd of Springboks go flying, running, and jumping like crazy.
Wow.
They also have, that's the national flower called the protea.
Okay, so we have football. We have some bowls over here with actually some spoons with a bowl. Very beautiful, very pretty. And I see a ton of food on the table. Walk me through what you brought. You already explained to me a little bit about some tea, which you brought a sample of, some sauces, alcohol, and even beef jerky. So explain to me a little bit about those items.
So if you want, I can start with one. If you want to try the tea.
Yeah, let's try the tea.
So obviously, South Africa, it was a British colony. So we have a lot of influence in terms of like the British do drink tea as well, and warm tea. We drink cold tea as well, iced tea. This is only grown in South Africa. The rooibos, which means the red bush, is the tea and the bush is only grown. It only grows in South Africa, in the regions and the climate there. I don't think it'll grow anywhere else. So that's the one we're most commonly used. This is it's not a caffeinated tea.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah,
Caffeine free.
I was gonna say.
It says on the package. Hot.
Yeah. So normally when we get together, if South African comes over and visit, like the mom or something will have a tray. They'd have the tea bags in a silver teapot, or that's how it brews better in any way than trying to put individual bags in individual cups. It just gets better. I guess the consistency of the tea gets a lot better.
Yeah, this color is very like brown. It looks very, because on the picture it looks red.
For the most part, it's red.
In the cup it looks more like brown, like very, very dark. But the flavor is very floral.
There's also a perfect timing of how long you're supposed to steep the bag. So maybe I was just slightly over that with all the stuff I was getting together.
I'm more scared about that little, because when you were explaining that to me during our break, you said that you put a little bit of it on a cracker.
It's a meat and vegetable extract.
Can I open it?
Yeah. I mean, it probably will smell like beef bouillon, or I might not have pronounced that the right way. The little cubes.
It smells like chocolate.
Nuh-uh.
And soy sauce.
Yeah,
it smells like chocolate with soy sauce, honestly. I'm like so curious about this. I'm just like licking the cracker.
If you want, you can get the full effect if you want to try that.
It just looks questionable when you...
Right.
Yes, because like you said, it looks like old oil that you're just like messing with and putting on a cracker. So explain to me a little bit about beef jerky now. You said that this is a different kind of beef, right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm probably going to lose my man card for not having my own beef jerky. But in South Africa, the beef jerky is called biltong. And so they make it out of anything like that the guys have hunted. If it's kudu or springbok, kudu is the giant antelope that has the corkscrew. That is by far the craziest antelope to see in the wild, and it is the tastiest meat from an antelope, in my opinion, too. But they make jerky out of it. They make jerky out of a lot of things. It could be beef as well. This is beef jerky.
You want to show it to the camera?
So this is an American company called Strive, and they sell this in Walmart. And so the funny sauce that people also cringe, like, why the heck did they call that a sauce? Is it they call it monkey gland sauce? But that is just it was just somehow a South African term to call barbecue sauce.
Interesting.
But it is made out of different things. It's not made out of monkeys or anything like that. I don't know why they called it monkey gland sauce. It's like but that was my addictive sauce of choice for burgers and stuff in South Africa.
And this one, it looks like it's hotter.
It does.
The second one, what is it? Oh, this one is garlic medium.
It has a little scale on the back with the peri chili pepper on.
Oh.
But anyway. But yeah, Nando's is definitely a chicken joint you'd want to try if you ever go to South Africa.
Okay, so we covered quite a bit of items already, so let's move on. This is our last item here. This is the alcoholic drink, you said. Yeah,
they have their own cream liqueur in South Africa that's locally distilled. And
it's very beautifully packaged.
Amarula cream, and amarula is a fruit that grows wild as well. And there's some wildlife videos that you can sometimes find where the monkeys and the baboons find the fermented amarulas that have fallen out of the tree, and then they just go a little woozy and crazy. It's quite hilarious. But But yeah, this is a cream liqueur like Bailey's, and it is so good. Just either by itself in a little shot glass, or if you want, you can pour it over a little bit of vanilla ice cream.
Interesting. Wow. Wian, you brought a lot of items for me today, and I loved my experience learning about South Africa culture, foods, traditions. It was so much fun getting to know you and your story of immigration. Thank you so much for visiting me today.
Appreciate you having me, and I commend you for what you're doing to expose people to knowing or learning some stuff about other countries and giving the people that live here an opportunity to tell their story. That's very noble of you.
Thanks for tuning into the American Dream Podcast. For more episodes, subscribe on your favorite platform, keep dreaming, and see you next time.